First film I saw this week was Blade Runner, which follows Rick Deckard as he hunts down Nexus 6 androids that have escaped to Earth. I originally watched this film many years ago and didn't like it much back then. However, I was probably like 14 at the time, so anything that wasn't constant action would have bored me to tears. When watching this film years later, I noticed little differences here and there. For one, I didn't remember Harrison Ford narrating everything, and two, the ending is completely different. But more on that later. I started to do some research and came to discover that there is in fact 7 different cuts of this film. There's the workprint prototype version, which was so negatively received by test audiences it required modifications to be made. The San Diego sneak preview version, which was apparently very similar to the original US theatrical cut, which is the one I watched. The international theatrical release, the US broadcast version, the director's cut, and the final cut. This franchise is often referred to as a duology, but honestly, the number of installments, it gives Star Wars a run for its money. It also probably has a less repetitive narrative, which is funny to think about considering 7 of the installments are basically the same film. So how was the cut of the film that I watched? Well, it was great, though from what I've heard, it's far from the best. It was an amazing experience, provided interesting characters and immersive, palpable world building. However, as I mentioned before, this film has narration, and it's more detrimental than interesting. And it's more detrimental. It's more detrimental. It took me like 50 takes to say that word, detrimental. Okay, I can say it now, fine. It's more detrimental than interesting. God, I'm out of it now. Where? It didn't bother me as much. It didn't bother me at first, but once it got to the end where there's an interesting moment, where the villain who has spent the entire third act trying to kill the main protagonist, only to save him from falling to his death at the end. It's a thought-provoking scene that makes the audience question why he would do such a thing, only for Harrison Ford's voice to start narrating everything again and tell the audience exactly why he saved his life, ruining all the interesting mystery that came with that scene. As far as I know, the later cuts didn't have any narration, so that's probably why they have better reception. Something else that sucked about the ending of this cut that was moved from later editions was how Harrison Ford's character just moves to a luscious forest out of nowhere. The whole film sets up a dystopian, polluted world where the majority of animals are extinct and are replaced by lifelike robots. So how exactly does a forest fit into this same world? I'm no expert, but I'm pretty sure animals are needed to support the ecosystem of a forest. Maybe. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say. Even though I had a lot of complaints, this film is still brilliant and one of my favorite films of all time. I just need to see one of the later cuts that removed a narration and dumb forest ending. I hear good things about the director's cut and final cut, so I'll be sure to watch those at some point. Next film I saw this week was Who Killed Captain Alex, which is such a great film, honestly. Even though it doesn't have the greatest production value, the clear passion put into the film and hilarious narrator make for an admirable project.
Action-packed movie! Ugandan Kiss.
She was caught watching Nigerian movies.
The movie's on! The movie's on! The movie's on! The tiger is in the cage!
I mean, the film's narrator is just so great. Blade Runner, I hope you're taking notes because this is how narration should be done.
Commandos! Deadly Commandos! Tiger Mafia! Super Kicker! What's happening?
After that masterpiece, I watched 2 terrible animated movies. Let's start with the less terrible film, Happy Feet. The character designs are weird, they look realistic while also having cartoonish expressions. The film's pacing is all over the place, and while the message is good, it lacks any sort of subtlety. The last film I saw this week was Food Fight, which is what I imagine a fever dream looks like. It's so repulsive and hideous to look at. It's the lowest rated film on Letterboxd I've ever seen. I mean, just look at that rating. It's a smelly movie. A very smelly movie. Very smelly. Honest question. Are you sick of hearing me saying, this is one of my favorite films of all time? Because I am. And I've said it so much at this point that it's lost all meaning. So if you are genuinely interested in seeing a ranking of all the films I watched on this channel, then I made a little Letterboxd list. And it's quite nice, yes, I think it's neat. The link to that will be in the description.
Oh, mate, I'm trying to mid I'm coming dick and that from me arse cheek. He's looking the enemy team. Whoa!